Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live, somebody. Let's go.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Pascal Show. What's up, everybody? Wow. Hopefully you guys are all doing well, enjoying your day, enjoying your Friday. It is Friday, y'all. This week went so fast. The days just blew by for me, personally. The days just blew by for me, but it was a productive week. Let's just say that. We don't have a whole lot of time because we got to jump into this because right now, as we know, the sentencing for Ahmaud Arbery's killers is happening any minute now. Actually, let me check here really quick because, yep, it is happening any minute now. And we are going to watch it live, you know? So do me a favor, because a lot of us didn't even know that this was happening today, to be really honest. Just kind of, I woke up and suddenly I was like, oh, the verdict's happening today. Damn, let's hop into this. Let's get into it. So we're going to be watching this verdict. We're going to be talking about this and all of that, finding out what's going on. It's going to be happening here very, very shortly. So do me a favor. Hit that like button down below. Send those likes all the way up. Happy Friday to all y'all who are tuning in, watching the show right now. And of course, do not forget to crush that subscribe button. It'd be really great to have you part of the Pascal Show family. We got to talk about all of this because as we already know, these three men were already found guilty for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And now we're going to find out if we're going to have them, if we're going to see if they're going to be living the rest of their natural life behind bars, which should be a very exciting one here, y'all. So we're going to find out what the judge does. Is he going to be nice? Is he going to be lenient? Is he going to be rude? Or he or she? Sorry, we don't know which. I don't know who the judge is, but we're going to find out. But anyway, Queen Kimberly, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Good morning. Recovering from the vid, but here, Pascal and my fam. Hey, swift recovery, okay? Drink plenty of fluids, you know what I'm saying? And I've heard nothing but terrible things about it, so just be safe out there, okay? Kimberly, we appreciate you, all right? And I appreciate that $10 super chat. So yeah, we're right now in the middle of waiting. I'll show you guys that here in a second. We're still waiting on to see what's going to happen here, right? But, I do have a little article that we're going to go through so that we can take a look at what we're kind of like a little bit of a recap, just to see what we're dealing with, what these three men are facing as far as what the verdict or what the sentencing could be. Because you never know. It could be the lightest type of sentencing, or they could go all the way in. And like I said, these three men could literally see the inside of a prison cell for the rest of their natural lives. And I think that's what a lot of people, general consensus, I think, is everyone's kind of waiting for that, right? So I'll be hopping back and forth just to make sure when the verdict does go down, we can watch it all together, right? But this is information that we need to know, So three men convicted in Ahmaud Arbery's murder to be sentenced today. This is happening today, all right? The three men convicted of killing Ahmaud Arbery are set to be sentenced today. A Georgia jury in November, after deliberating for 11 hours, only 11 hours, by the way, guys, which I'm pretty impressed. That means, in my personal opinion, it sounds like prosecution did a damn good job. That's just what I think. But they convicted the three white men of chasing and fatally shooting Ahmaud Arbery, 25 years old, a 25-year-old black man who was out on a Sunday jog in February of 2020. Civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump was representing the Arbery's family, spoke in a press conference before the sentencing, calling the guilty verdict an awakening in America. What we pray for is that This is a new precedent in America that harkens back to the words written in 1776 when they say, "We hold these truths, all men are created equal," Crump said. We pray that we see the same spirit in a sentence of these killers, this lynch mob. We want to make sure that we don't get a slap on the wrist, which is just what I said a second ago. And I'm just going to keep bouncing back and forth just to make sure we don't miss this verdict, or this sentencing. I'm sorry. But exactly, I couldn't agree more. I really hope, I personally, in my personal opinion, hope it is not just a slap on the wrist, that is just a stroll in the park. No, throw them under the prison, because what they did was unspeakable. They were found guilty of doing an unspeakable crime. So, in my personal opinion, yes, please let this not be just a slap on the wrist. Okay. Of course, Aubrey's mother thanked the community for their support. I just want to say thank you all for standing with us to give justice for Ahmaud. She also said she said at the press conference, "I really don't have much to say this morning, but the day has finally come. The day that my family and I have prayed for has come." Not entirely yet, though. I mean, of course, them being found guilty, yes, fantastic. But now it's a matter of finding out. Sorry, still checking. Now it's a matter of finding out who's guilty, or what are they, what their sentencing is going to be. Sorry about that, guys. Haven't had my coffee today yet. Okay. So Travis McMichael, 35 years old, delivered the deadly shot and was convicted on all 9 charges: malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, aggravated assault with a shotgun, aggravated assault with a pickup truck. Because remember, they rammed him. They tried to knock him off the road while he was trying to run away, running for his life. Okay, let's not forget. They bumped him with their truck. Yeah. False imprisonment and criminal intent to commit a felony. All of them convicted on all 9 charges. So here's the thing. These 3 men, and this is just Travis McMichael. We haven't even gotten to the other 2. So they might all 3 get totally different sentencings. You never know, because of the severity of what they were charged with, so on and so forth, right? What they were found guilty of, and so forth. Not everybody got all 9 counts. Mind you, not all of them got found guilty on all 9 charges. Okay? But Travis McMichael did. And I'm going to be real. If he gets a slap on the wrist, I don't even know what to say. I'll be like, the justice system is flawed. I mean, it is just FUBAR. Okay? That's what I think. His father, Gregory McMichael, 65 years old, a former Georgia police officer, which we already knew about that because he was connected with higher ups and they were hiding things and trying to bury this murder, right? The DA had to step down because she was doing very, very bad, shady things in the background. Anyway, that's a whole other Charles Dickens story in itself. All right. He was found not guilty of malice murder, but was convicted on the remaining charges, including felony murder counts. So he got found guilty on 8 except 1. Like I said, you never know. You never know. Like I said, Gregory's sentencing might be less than his son's. We don't know, though. We're going to find out, though. We gonna find out. All right. The McMichael's neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, 53 years old, was found guilty of three felony murder counts, as well as charges of aggravated assault with his pickup truck, false imprisonment, and criminal intent to commit a felony. Okay. So what's that? 3, 4, 5, and 6. So he was found guilty on 6 charges. 6 of them. Okay. Still not there yet. Dang. Come on, y'all. Let's go. Let's go. Right? I want to hear this verdict just like anybody else. All right. So we have these 3 men with various charges, right? They all got a varying degrees of charges, and they're all probably going to get varying degrees of sentencings, right? Some might get less than others, but to be really honest, they were all an audience to and an assailant and a reason why this young man, Ahmaud Arbery, is not here anymore. Period. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens here. All right. All 3 men have pleaded not guilty to the 9-count state indictment. Each faces a maximum sentence of life in prison. Like I said, I don't think all of them are going to get life in prison. I really don't. But I do think that they're going to get a lot of. It's going to be big chunks of time that these guys aren't going to be seen. They're going to be making new friends in prison. You feel me? Or they're going to become somebody's new friend in prison. You feels me? The 3 men also have been indicted on federal hate crime charges and have pleaded not guilty. All of them. And of course, there's a new trial that's set to begin in February, the 7th of February. So, like I said, this is going to be a very, very interesting one. Because right now, still waiting on them to come out. But as soon as they do, we will be on here to chop it up. But like I said, those 3 men, they have a varying degrees of charges, and some are found guilty for certain things, and some are not. But the person who has the most to look at, which will most likely be life in prison, is Travis McMichael. He's the one who's gotten all 9 charges. He got found guilty on all 9 charges, y'all. That's a lot. It's a lot. Like I said, I'll say it again. He was convicted on all 9 charges: malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, aggravated assault with a shotgun, aggravated assault with a pickup truck, false imprisonment, and criminal intent to commit a felony. And a partridge. That's too late, isn't it? I still got the tree up, though. Today's the last day you'll see this tree, by the way. But real talk, it's a done deal. It's a wrap for Travis McMichael. That's what I think. He'll be seeing life, I think, in prison. God forbid he gets like 10 years or something like that. That would be insane if he got something less than what I think he should be getting. But there you have it, y'all. I mean, we're still waiting on the verdict or the decision on their sentencing, what their sentencing is going to be. We're still waiting on that. I'm kind of looking around to see if there's maybe other places have started a little bit. You know how sometimes these lives can be very, very funky sometimes, but no, it is the same. They haven't come out yet. But what I'd like to do is this. I'm going to open up the chat lines. and then to hear your thoughts, see what you guys think on this whole situation. What do you think? Right? What are your thoughts on this whole trial, on this sentencing? What do you hope to see with this sentencing? All right. So feel free to jump on in. Let me tag that, pin that to the top. So it should be pinned to the top here very shortly. There it is. By all means, go ahead, click on it, hop on in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this before we hear about anything as far as the sentencing, because we're still, like I said, we are still waiting to hear about that. So, yes. Link is pinned to the top, so hop on in. The water is warm. And let's have a conversation. But like I said, these guys are looking at varying degrees of different sentencings. They're not all going to have the same. They're not all going to share the same amount of time in prison. Some are going to get out earlier, if at all. Some are going to get out earlier before others. But I do think Travis McMichael over anyone else is going to be seeing life in prison, period. What sucks for him is that he's the youngest one. So he has a lot more time to be chilling in the cut. He has a lot more time to be chilling in the cut. Just saying. Martina just said, don't bother with the tree. You got till Easter. Oh, man. See, that's the other question. I mean, that's a left turn and everything. But when do you guys take down your Christmas stuff? That's the question right there. Let me check this real quick. Nope. Verdict is still hasn't. Okay. Sentencing still has not happened. Lex is in the house. Hello, Lex. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling?
I'm good. A longtime fan.
Thank you.
Love the show.
Thank you so much.
And don't worry, you do not have to take down that Christmas tree. Ours is up still.
Word. Okay. See, I always feel weird. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but my kid keeps crying every time I say Christmas is over. So it's all out of guilt.
Yeah, they want more toys and presents. That's all. That's all. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. Christmas trees make me smile. So for me, I'm like, I'll hold out for as long as I can, and then I got to start taking it down. But
well, I love the Prince colors too, my man. So
thank you. You know, I appreciate. You don't have to be okay. So, what are your thoughts on this whole situation with the sentence?
Well, you know what, man. They deserve what they got. You know what? I'm just going to be straight up. The time that they're going to be spending is going to be hard. Whatever they get, it's going to be hard.
Right.
Nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody wants to go to prison.
Yeah, last I checked, you know.
But look at the heinous crime that they did. I've been following it since Jump Street. They had there's nothing that they could prove that says that they were in the right in that situation anywhere. They gunned this man down. They hunted him down.
Yeah, there's no logical reason for what they did, right?
This is what happens when you do something wrong. The problem is we have a history in this country as Black people of not getting the just deserved for the crime.
Yeah.
And we also have this feeling of guilt when we do get what the verdict that we wanted this verdict, and now I'm seeing backlash of guilt. There shouldn't be any guilt on this. We can't be gunned down for jogging.
No, hell.
You know how many times I've walked into places that were being built just to look at buildings, architecture, because Black people love architecture too, y'all. We do.
Yeah.
And you can't say that. I mean, I heard, if you look at it, lots of people have been through that property. Many people went through that property. You know how we know? Because they got to say it.
Yeah, well, that is true. They lived to tell the tale. right? Of, yeah, I walked in that place. I checked it out, you know? Uh, and I don't think there's anything wrong with going and checking out the bones of a house, right? No one should be shot down just because if they allegedly stole a hammer or a couple screws, regardless from a construction site, regardless, and then there's that part that I think in my head of what would make any person, let's say it's not a hammer, right? It's just like a couple screws and nails, right? And bolts. What makes somebody want to go and steal just like a handful of nails, right? What motivates somebody to go and just grab some nails randomly from a construction site? Like, oh wow, I've been needing some nails, so let me get these nails real quick. No. What makes somebody go and do something like that? And then have these guys feel like it's justified for them to track this guy down over said material that probably was, what they thought was a hammer or a couple nails. Like, you're going to go and shoot this man because of a bunch of nails?
Yeah,
Because
but then there's the whole thing where I don't know if, sorry to cut you off, but I don't know if you've seen, there's a video of a gentleman who was getting his ATVs robbed from right outside of his house. Many of things are from his property. What he did was he put those Apple locators in his property so that they could trace the guy that was stealing. It turned out to be a man who was very well off, did not need to steal from these kids.
yeah,
But they found him and they approached him. They brought the police. They all had a very civil conversation. They agreed that the man would give the guys back the $1,400 from what he's already stole. No one got shot. No one got shot. The police, the detectives came and they found all the stuff. The guy tried the whole, well, this has been in my garage forever, even though these Apple Air things got in my thing, but no one got shot.
yeah, no one died.
People steal things every day and don't get shot.
Yeah, crazy, right? Oh, by the way, speaking of those Apple things, ladies, I'm saying this to the ladies, all right? Because I love you, ladies. Let me just say this really quick. Be careful with those. There are guys out here that are literally going and sneaking those Apple location finder thingies on your person or on your, like, in your purse or in your car, stuff like that, so that they can track where you live and maybe do something terrible to you. So I just wanted to say that really quick. That is a true story that's like hopping around like crazy right now.
Also, be careful of guys who you've just met that give you those little arm tracker things as gifts. Those are also tracking devices too. I had a stalker do that to me. Did not know he was just tracking where I was going from his phone.
Yeah. It's some creepazoid type stuff, y'all. Like I said, there was a supermodel that just talked about it, just to, like, it's an article that's popping off like right now, where she's like, yeah, some dude tried to literally put this in my purse, try to slide this in my purse to track me down to where I live and all that. Girls are finding them randomly on their cars, so on and so forth. So just be safe out there, because that stuff.
Guys, there's a better way to get a girl's attention, man. There really is.
Obviously, but apparently there's some really messed up individuals out here that are willing to do something like that. But anyway, I digress. The verdict, it looks like the verdict's about to go down, so I'm going to let you go, Lex. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you for being a presence in Black excellence, my brother.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, it's the moment we've been waiting for. Let's pop into it. Let's get into it. Sentencing is happening right now as we speak.
Morning. I have a fourth motion to make orally. I'm not going to belabor them at any great length, but I didn't want to have them on file for the record. We filed this morning a motion to bar imposition of sentence of life without parole as to defendant Brian for felony murder. That is basically, we're arguing for an extension of the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in Edmond v. Florida, which held that individuals who are convicted of felony murder without killing, attempting to kill, or intending to kill are not eligible for the death penalty. We're pursuing that both under the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 17 of the Constitution of the State of Georgia. We're asking the court to extend that reasoning one step further, reflecting evolving standards of decency, and hold that the imposition of a sentence of life without parole for felony murder would likewise be unconstitutionally cruel under our constitutions, absent evidence that defendant Brian killed, attempted to kill, or intended to kill Ahmaud Arbery. So we don't believe any of those facts are in dispute in this case. That's our first motion.
Anything from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. The reason felony murder and different from malice murder is because of the lack of specific intent to commit the murder. As we all know, when a co-defendant like two men go into a convenience store and they attack the convenience store clerk, and the clerk, defending himself, shoots and kills one of the armed robbers. The first armed robber is responsible for the death of his friend and co-defendant under felony murder, because while there was no intent for one armed robber to kill the other armed robber, it's a matter of responsibility under felony murder, not a matter of intent to kill. And in this particular case, Mr. Bryan is eligible for this court to impose a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. There is nothing preventing this court from doing that on a felony murder charge, because felony murder, once again, is about responsibility, not about intent to kill. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Goff.
Your Honor, with all due respect to Ms. Pascal, I don't believe that response addressed the issue. The issue is for an individual system such as Mr. Bryan, who did not kill, did not attempt to kill, and did not intend to kill, whether or not the 8th Amendment allows the imposition of a sentence of life without parole is not a question of the Georgia sentencing scheme or statutes. It's a question of federal constitutional law. Clearly, under those circumstances, the death penalty, imposition of the death penalty, is cruel and unusual. We are contending since Edmond v. Florida in 1982 that standards and our sense of decency as a society have evolved to the point where the 8th Amendment does not allow the imposition of a sentence of life without parole for felony murder, absent killing, an attempt to kill, or intent to kill. And I don't think the state contests that those are not the facts of this case. I think the state is relying on the fact that the United States Supreme Court hasn't addressed this issue yet, at least not to my knowledge. We're preserving the issue for appeal.
All right. The court received the motion to bar imposition of sentence of life without the possibility of parole as defendant Bryan felony murder this morning. It looks like it was filed at 8:18. I have reviewed the motion. Cites the one case that was just referenced by Mr. Goff, and having considered the arguments of counsel, the court denies the motion.
Bang.
Mr. Goff.
Nice try, mother lover. Nice mother lover try.
To declare unconstitutional mandatory life sentence for felony murder for a discrete class of offenders, and in the alternative, motion to bar imposition of life sentences to defendant Bryan for felony murder.
Wow.
The previous motion addressed whether or not Mr. Bryan was eligible under the 8th Amendment for a sentence of life without parole. This motion challenges whether Mr. Bryan can be sentenced to a mandatory life sentence for felony murder, both as a class of individuals who have not killed, intended to kill, or attempted to kill, and also as to Mr. Bryan individually. And we contend that this is essentially, the first part of it is taking the Edmond case that has already been discussed this morning, not one step, but two steps, to strike down mandatory felony murder for people that convicted of felony murder that fall within that class of individuals that have not killed, attempted to kill, or intended to kill. This is an issue which has tremendous import in the state of Georgia and around the country, in that there are hundreds in Georgia and probably thousands of individuals around the country who are serving life sentences, have been in prison for many, many years, who drove the car that was used to escape from the armed robbery, or provided the key to break into the house, not knowing that it was occupied. There's all kinds of people out there across the country serving life sentences right now who never killed, attempted to kill, or intended to kill, but have been subjected to mandatory life imprisonment.
Wow. This guy trying.
I would venture to say the majority of those individuals tend to be African-American, but I haven't studied it in depth in a while. But that
I'm sorry. Why does he have to throw some of this ish in here like that? Why does he have to say that? Did he really have to say it like that? Did you hear what I heard? Bruh, come on now.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're white,
Why would
black,
you
or
sit?
Martian. It's still wrong.
You're an
for
idiot.
The legislature to require this court, to compel this court as a matter of law to impose a mandatory life sentence on an individual who hasn't killed, attempted to kill, or intended to kill. And again, this is an issue that would have significant impact if it were granted.
This man needs to be
We are
disbarred.
certainly preserving that issue. Secondly, with respect to Mr. Bryan individually, we believe that he is not eligible for imposition of a mandatory life sentence pursuant to the 8th Amendment. Based on the totality of the circumstances surrounding the offense, his criminal history and other circumstances, which we'll get into during the sentencing hearing, and that the imposition of a life sentence to Mr. Bryan would be unconstitutionally cruel and disproportionate. And we cite the relevant Supreme Court authorities as to that issue.
No. Still, no. Why would you sit there and say the race thing? Why does that?
Your Honor, the legislature
What?
has spoken not only with 1651, which imposes a mandatory life sentence for felony murder,
Unbelievable.
but also with party to a crime and conspiracy. All of those laws are on the books for a very important reason, which is responsibility for your actions. And at this point, the state is asking that this court not fly in the face of the legislature or the statutes that are on the books, especially 1651, based on this particular argument that somehow Mr. Bryan is special and outside the imposition of the law. Thank you.
Any further word on that motion?
Deny.
On behalf of Greg McMichael, we'd like to join that motion, but without any further argument.
It doesn't apply to us, really.
Your Honor, I don't have to object. I'm arguing, I guess. But the idea that Mr. Bryan is asking for special treatment here is just wrong and contrary to the argument actually made. Our position is that no one in America convicted of felony murder who didn't kill or attempt to kill or intend to kill should be subjected to a mandatory life sentence. That doesn't mean that a court couldn't impose a mandatory life sentence. It means that the court should constitutionally have the discretion to impose the sentence that is appropriate, and for the legislature to dictate that these individuals, such as Mr. Bryan, the court cannot consider a sentence of less than life imprisonment is cruel and unusual, and this practice needs to stop. It's gone on since before I was born, before Your Honor was born. It was wrong then, it's wrong now, and sometime, somewhere, it has to stop. Secondly, as to Mr. Bryan individually, again, it's not suggesting that Mr. Bryan is special. It's suggesting that anyone in Mr. Bryan's circumstances, under the facts of this case, anyone besides Mr. Bryan with the same criminal history, with the same background, with the same circumstances, that imposition of a mandatory life sentence would likewise be disproportionate as to them. So this is not a request for special treatment. It is a request for individualized sentencing consistent with the 8th Amendment.
Wow. Denied.
Again, the motion is filed this morning. I did have an opportunity to review the motion. Having heard the arguments of counsel, the court denies the motion. Mr. Goff.
He's like, you got more?
Our third and last
Have mercy, you got more.
formal written motion is a motion to
Wow.
vacate the illegal felony
doing his
murder
job, I
conviction
guess.
based on double jeopardy.
Racist piece of trash.
And I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing. An inmate apparently from the Michigan criminal prison system, Mr. Sires, was kind enough to draft a motion for me to file. And even went out and found Georgia case law. Your Honor, I have to confess it doesn't quite reconcile with my memory of all of the Georgia case law. But the argument's pretty good. Mr. Bryan was acquitted of count 2, felony murder. there is only one felony murder statute. And therefore, once you've been acquitted of felony murder in count 2, double jeopardy bars conviction under counts 3, 4, and 5. The argument being that they're all different ways to commit the same offense. And we believe that under the authorities, which are not just state authorities, they're federal authorities, including Sanabria v. U.S., 437 U.S. 54, that the court should find that double jeopardy bars imposition of sentence under counts 3, 4, and 5. Independent of that,
y'all killing me. The
we
comments.
also have an issue with respect to
Come on now.
the jury returned a verdict of not guilty as to the lesser offenses on count 7, and therefore the verdict on count 7 is repugnant with the verdict of the jury as to the lesser offenses. I would note, I don't recall the court asking the jury to address the lesser offenses
Grasping the
unless and
straws.
until Mr. Bryan was found not guilty on the indicted offense of count 7. But nevertheless, the jury did return verdicts of not guilty. The state did not object to the return of those verdicts at the time. And those not guilty verdicts on those 3 lesser offenses are repugnant to the conviction on count 7. And therefore, count 7 should be set aside.
Grasping the
For
straws.
that reason.
Denied.
And that is my motion.
Judge done made up his mind already. Come on. Look at him. He's like, man, I don't need this ish.
Your Honor,
I done
it
made
has
up my
been
mind.
the law in the state of Georgia and commented and gone over by the Supreme Court of Georgia, especially as recently as 2015 in Duggar versus the state, Dugger versus the state, 297, Georgia 120. And similar circumstances where a defendant was found not guilty of the malice murder charge, but guilty of the felony murder charge. And he claimed double jeopardy because only one person was dead and they came back not guilty on the malice. And in this particular case, Duggar, they said, no, that's not how this works. Appellant faced a single prosecution and he received a single punishment for murdering the victim. That's the quote from this. His double jeopardy rights were therefore not violated. In addition, he wanted to argue that these were inconsistent verdicts. Once again, the court held that that is not the case. There was no inconsistency between the verdicts of guilty on felony murder and not guilty on malice murder. Now, of course, in this case for Mr. Bryan, he's claiming, well, there was a series of felony murders. Well, the felony murders are predicated on certain underlying acts. And in this case, the jury did find him not guilty of aggravated assault with a shotgun and also not guilty of felony murder based on that aggravated assault with the shotgun. So therefore, their verdict was consistent in that manner, but they did find him guilty of aggravated assault with the pickup truck, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt at false imprisonment, and the felony murder associated with that. The state is going to, of course, argue that 2 of those felony murders will be vacated by operation of law and that Mr. Bryan will only be sentenced to 1 of the felony murder counts. And so therefore, based on Duggar as well as numerous other cases, and I believe Duggar was most recently cited in 2020 by the Strong case by the Georgia Supreme Court, that there is no sound legal basis in the state of Georgia for a double jeopardy claim, as well as numeration 22 on page 4 of Defendant Bryan's motion. Finding someone not guilty of a lesser charge doesn't necessarily mean they're not guilty of a more egregious charge. So the fact that they came back not guilty on those lesser charges versus the more heavy charge does not all of a sudden mean that it's a repugnant and or inconsistent verdict. We ask that you deny the motion. Thank you.
Bang. Man. She kind of looks like Conan O'Brien's sister. You know what I'm saying?
So kind of point out, Duggar is readily distinguished. Obviously, malice murder is one crime.
Hit that like button.
Felony murder is another. Ms. Dunikoski is confusing the merger concept with the double jeopardy issue. In this case, these are all felony murder counts. But they're all the same crime. So that is what distinguishes the Duggar case. And furthermore, with respect to the lesser offenses, Your Honor, the jury's verdict on the 3 lesser offenses of not guilty
Just say
indicates
denied.
that the jury concluded that an element of the offense, the greater offense, was missing. The verdicts are repugnant. I would submit they're repugnant as a matter of law, and that therefore the court must vacate count 7 as to Mr. Bryan. And that doesn't mean that there won't be 2 other felony murder counts left. It may be an academic discussion, but nevertheless, we're asking the court to vacate the conviction under count 7 as repugnant with the 3 misdemeanor counts and impose sentence on the misdemeanor count only.
Denied. Sigourney Weaver, that's a good one too.
As previously indicated, the court received the motion this morning. I did take a look through the motion.
Denied.
We've taken a look at Duggar, cases cited by the state, and the court denies the motion. I understand you've got one oral motion.
Yes, Your Honor.
There's more?
I appreciate the court's
Oh my
patience.
dear God. Just
Your Honor, we
done.
are making an additional
What the hell?
additional constitutional challenges to Georgia's sentencing scheme with respect to the imposition of the sentence of life without the possibility of parole. And again, as I think prosecutors suggested many years ago, a lot of the sentencing jurisprudence and criminal law jurisprudence began in death penalty cases with the theory that death is different. Well, I think the evolving case law over the last several decades has demonstrated that death is really not so very different after all. We assert 8th and 5th Amendment challenges to Georgia's sentencing scheme, which rightly gives judges broad discretion in determining sentences, but with respect to life without parole, that discretion is effectively unguided, as opposed to the sentencing scheme in a death penalty case for determining the imposition of the death penalty. Besides being cruel, the sentencing scheme also violates due process in that the statutes fail to provide sufficient guidance to the trial court. And therefore, Georgia's sentencing scheme is hopelessly ambiguous as well as arbitrary and capricious. Moreover, without any required findings of fact or conclusions of law, there is nothing for an appellate court to review to determine whether a sentence of life without parole has been lawfully imposed. Furthermore, we assert a 6th Amendment challenge, which I would call an Apprendi challenge, although it's not actually the
Have
authority.
mercy, bro.
That any facts that increase a mandatory minimum sentence must be set, which in this case would be life without parole as opposed to a life sentence, that any fact that increases a mandatory minimum sentence must be submitted to a jury and found true beyond a reasonable doubt. And I cite Olen v. U.S., ALLEYNE, 133 S. Court 2151, 2013. Blakely v. Washington, BLAKELY v. Washington, 542 U.S. 296, 2004. Your Honor, the jury acquitted as to counts 2 and 6. With count 7, it is impossible to determine what facts the jury found in this case because the state elected to pack so much into count 7. You've got parties to the crime. You've got principals to the crime. You've got the McMichaels pickup truck. You've got Mr. Bryan's pickup truck. And you've got whether it's an intent to injure or whether it's placing Mr. Arbery in reasonable apprehension of receiving an injury.
This is
There's
so stupid.
many different theories that the jury could have returned a verdict on that there's no way to draw any findings, meaningful findings of fact for sentencing purposes from the verdict that the jury rendered. And therefore, under these circumstances, there's nothing here for which the court could find a jury-found basis for imposing the sentence that the state is seeking in this case.
I think that was written on legal paper, too. That wasn't even printed out. Handwritten. That was handwritten.
Noted for the record from the state.
At least that's what it looks like. Sigourney Weaver's about to speak. Hold up, I think.
Of course, the state's out of
Yep, she's a beast, y'all.
Heard the motion, as is the court. However, the state's position at this point in time is this is a legislature issue. The legislature has passed 1651.
Let's go.
And it is a mandatory life sentence. The court does have discretion between life or life without the possibility of parole. The complaint here, it sounds like, is, well, there's an Eighth Amendment violation, a Fifth Amendment violation, a Sixth Amendment violation because there's no guidance to the court. However, as this court is aware, the Supreme Court of Georgia has given Superior Court judges great deference because this court has heard the evidence. This court has seen the demeanor of the defendants, especially in this particular case, the demeanor of Travis McMichael as he testified. This court has seen the evidence from the witnesses on the stand and the body cam video of what took place. So in this case, the court is going to be given and has received the evidence in this case for its review to inform it and its discretion as to whether to impose a life sentence or a life sentence without the possibility of parole. I believe the next step in this process, of course, is going to be the state presenting victim impact and then argument. The defense will present its argument, all of which also informs this court and allows it to use its broad discretion and judgment as to whether to impose a life sentence or a life sentence without the possibility of parole. So we ask that you deny this motion.
Facts.
Thank you,
It's
Judge.
ridiculous. Grasping at straws.
Your Honor, with all due
Girl,
respect,
schooling.
this is not a legislative issue.
Oh, have mercy.
The Constitution is not up for discussion or negotiation.
He's singing for his
The
dinner.
Constitution is what it is. The Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendments to the United States Constitution are the federal provisions at play here, in addition to the parallel provisions of our Georgia state constitution. Legislators are politicians. They have to run for election, and they do what they think they need to do.
Hit that like button,
And
y'all.
The job of
Please.
the judiciary as the independent third branch of government is to put a check on that action when it violates our state and federal constitutions. So simply saying that it is a legislative issue doesn't address the question. And ultimately, it is for our courts to defend that Your Honor and the courts above you are the ultimate guardians of our state and federal constitutions and of the individual rights of individuals. And to simply say, or maybe that wasn't the suggestion, but one could interpret it that way, that the court should simply defer to the legislature as to what the Constitution means, to the extent that was their argument, is repugnant to our entire system of criminal justice.
Oh, darn.
I ask the court to grant the motion.
Let them be repugnant then.
And I didn't hear the argument quite that way, where the court has to defer to the legislature. There is a structure in place with regard to sentencing, and this court intends to adhere to that structure as established through Georgia case law. On that basis, the motion is denied.
Bang. No soup
those
for
are all
you.
preliminary matters, and before the
Are we
court,
done?
is the state ready to proceed with? And the way we're going to do it, as I understand it, is the state is going to present any evidence it has in aggravation as well as a opening argument. The defense is then going to have an opportunity each individually to present any evidence in mitigation if they wish to do so, and make argument, with the state then having the rebuttal. That's how I understand we're going to proceed.
Okay, so real quick, I hate to pause this, but I have to. Okay, real quick. All right. So that dude, Brian, Mr. Brian's lawyer, I don't know his name, the racist piece of trash here, was literally trying to find trying to appeal as many as he could on all the almost every single charge that he could, right? But what about the McMichaels? None of the lawyers have stepped up and said not a damn thing. Have you noticed that? They haven't said anything. They haven't come out with any appeals. They haven't said, hey, well, this shouldn't be here because this, that, and the third carry the one. You know what I mean? None of them. None. Weird, right?
From the state.
Unless they're doing it now. I mean, I don't know. That was weird.
Your Honor, for the record, today is Friday, January 7th, 2022. The jury returned its verdict on November 24th, 2021. That verdict was that Travis McMichael was found guilty on all 9 counts in the indictment. Greg McMichael was found not guilty of count 1, which is malice murder, but guilty on the other counts 2 through 9 in the indictment. Mr. Bryan was found guilty only as to counts 3, 4, and 5, all felony murder counts, and the underlying felonies corresponding to those felony murder counts, which were counts 7, 8, and 9. The court asked all of us to look into, with regard to Travis McMichael, the issue of potential merger as to the malice murder charge. The state has reviewed its own indictment and notes that it charged Travis McMichael, who was found guilty of count 1 malice murder, a human being did unlawfully, with malice aforethought, cause the death of Ahmaud Arbery, a human being, by unlawfully chasing him through the public roadways of the Satilla Shores neighborhood in pickup trucks and shooting him with a shotgun, contrary to the laws of said state, the good order, peace, and dignity thereof. As the state notes, this encompasses 2 different actions. Unlawfully chasing him through the public roadways of Satilla Shores, which describes the actions they did in the pickup trucks, and then shooting him with the shotgun. As the court will recall, defense filed a demur to count 1, saying this was surplusage and should be removed. The state's argument was that the state was not going to argue it was an either-or situation, and that is not going to be the state's argument here. The state's argument here is that factually, the state believes that count 8, false imprisonment, factually has been eaten up by the way the state charged count 1 in this indictment. In other words, count 8 and count 6 would merge into count 1 for Travis McMichael on the malice murder charge because of unlawfully chasing him, meaning Mr. Arbery, through the public roadways of the Satilla Shores neighborhood in pickup trucks. The reason we believe that factually would merge is because count 8 is actually the false imprisonment charge. And count 8 does say, said accused did chase Mr. Arbery with a Ford F1 pickup truck and a Chevy Silverado pickup truck through the public roadways of the Satilla Shores neighborhood and did confine and detain Ahmaud Arbery. As the court is aware, the statute has nothing to do with chasing. That is descriptive language factually. The statute has to do with confining and detaining the victim. The fact that the state used up factually both the chasing in count 8 and the chasing in count 1 means both count 6 and 8 would then merge into count 1. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I will address this, that the defense may argue that count 7 and count 9 would also then merge into count 1 malice murder. However, the state's argument is that is not the case. The reason for that is count 7 is the aggravated assault with the pickup trucks. Did make an assault upon the person of Ahmaud Arbery with a Ford F-150 pickup truck and a Chevy Silverado pickup truck. An object, device, or instrument, when used offensively against a person, is likely to result in serious bodily injury. That, of course, factually can be a number of different things. And what the state did argue in closing argument was pulling up next to somebody, startling them, could put them in reasonable apprehension of receiving serious bodily injury. The state also argued in its closing argument that Travis McMichael, despite his testimony, actually used his pickup truck to pull in front of Mr. Arbery and cut him off, which caused Mr. Arbery on Burford to turn around and run away. So the fact that the jury found that they used their pickup trucks, objects which used defensively against a person are likely to result in serious bodily injury, did create an aggravated assault for Mr. Arbery, does not merge into count 1, which was unlawfully chasing him through the public roadways of Satilla Shores in pickup trucks. They are 2 separate and distinct things, especially when we have video evidence of the McMichaels pulling up next to Mr. Arbery then running away. That itself right there is an aggravated assault. He was obviously startled. He obviously was trying to get away from these men. They pulled up next to him. Reasonable apprehension of receiving serious bodily injury. With regard then to count 9 is criminal attempt to commit the felony of false imprisonment. As the court will recall, the defense also demurred to that particular charge in the indictment. That particular charge in the indictment did have an and in it, which, as the court knows, is an or, which the state explained in its closing argument to the jury. In this particular count 9, it did charge the defendants with unlawfully chase Ahmaud Arbery through the public roadways of the Satilla Shores neighborhood in pickup trucks and did attempt to confine and detain Ahmaud Arbery without legal authority on Burford Drive using a Ford F-150 pickup truck. In this particular instance, the state did argue and did inform the court in the demurrer response that it was going to argue and or, because as we know, a criminal attempt is just a substantial step toward committing that particular felony. And as the court will note, count 8 took place on Holmes Drive, whereas count 9 was on Burford. So they don't have anything to do with each other. They're two separate incidents at two separate points in time based on the evidence in this case. So either one could be considered a substantial step. And because the and in between unlawfully chase and did attempt to confine and detain is really an or for the purposes of this. And once again, the state put that in its response to demurrer by the defendants, and the court denied the demurrer. That was filed by the defendants. The state also argued in closing argument that that was an or. They could find it that he was chased. They could also find that on Burford, they did attempt to confine and detain him, especially with Mr. Bryan's actions of trying to run him off the roadway from his driveway, and with Mr. McMichael's actions of cutting him off at the end of Burford. So in this particular instance, especially with the criminal attempt, it does not merge into malice murder simply because of the words did unlawfully chase him through the public roadways contained in count 1. Therefore, when it comes to Mr. Travis McMichael, the state's position on sentencing and murder is this, that he is looking at a life sentence on count 1, malice murder, that counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, all felony murder, would be vacated by operation of law. Count 6, which is the aggravated assault with the shotgun charge, would factually merge into count 1. Count 7 would remain standing. And count 7 is a potential sentence of 1 to 20 years on the aggravated assault with the pickup trucks. Count 8, in the state's opinion, would factually merge then into count 1. False imprisonment, of course, is a 1 to 10 potential sentence. And count 9, criminal attempt, cuts that sentence in half. So count 9, criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment, is a potential of 1 to 5 years. Therefore, the minimum sentence that this court could impose on Travis McMichael would be life with the possibility of parole with 15 years, and that court could suspend, probate, run concurrent with that particular sentence. The maximum, and that is what the state is asking for in this case, is a life without the possibility of parole. The state did file its notice of its intent to seek life without the possibility of parole back in 2020 when this case was first indicted. So the state is seeking life without the possibility of parole as to count 1. Counts 2 through 5 are vacated by operation of law. Count 6 would merge into count 1, leaving then count 7 and 9, which would be 25 years. We are asking that that 25 years be a 25-year sentence, but to be run concurrent if the court chose to impose a life without the possibility of parole sentence. And that would be count 7 concurrent with count 1, 20 years to serve. Count 9 concurrent with count 1, consecutive to count 7, thus making it a total of 25 years running concurrent with the life without the possibility of parole sentence on count 1 for Travis McMichael.
She wants
and
to
that is
bury
what
him.
The state will be requesting and seeking. With regard to Greg McMichael, he was found not guilty on count 1, malice murder. He was then found guilty of counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, all felony murder. The state is seeking, therefore, a life without the possibility of parole sentence on count 2, which is felony murder based on count 6, which is the aggravated assault with the shotgun. Counts 3, 4, and 5 would be vacated by operation of law. Count 6 would merge into count 2, the felony murder. In this particular case, that felony murder only alleges did cause the death of Ahmaud Arbery based on the aggravated assault with the shotgun. So we do not have the same issue with language of chasing in count 2 of this indictment.
Bruh.
This would, of course, leave count 7, count 8, and count 9 available for sentencing.
Damn right,
Count
Johnny
7
Bravo.
is
Thank you so
aggravated
much for the
assault with
$5 super
pickup
chat.
trucks. That's a potential 1 to 20-year sentence. Count 8, false imprisonment on Holmes Drive, a 1 to 10-year sentence. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment, a 1 to 5 year sentence. So the minimum Greg McMichael is looking at is life with the possibility of parole and 35 years. That 35 years can be run concurrent, it can be probated, it can be suspended. The maximum Mr. Greg McMichael is looking at is count 2. The state is going to be asking for life without the possibility of parole. Counts 3, 4, and 5 are vacated by operation of law. Count 6 would merge into that life without the possibility of parole sentence, and the additional 35 years to be run concurrent consecutive, meaning count 7 concurrent with count 2, 20 years to serve, count 8 concurrent to count 2, consecutive to count 7, and count 9, the 5 years to serve, concurrent with count 2, consecutive to count 8, resulting in a 35-year sentence to be run concurrently with the life without the possibility of parole sentence on count 2.
She wants them gone forever.
With regard to Mr. Bryan, Mr. Bryan was found not guilty of counts 1 and 2. He was, however, found guilty of the 3 felony murder counts, count 3, 4, and 5, based on aggravated assault with a pickup truck, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt at false imprisonment. The state is looking at a life sentence on count 3. Counts 4 and 5 would be vacated by operation of law. He was found not guilty on count 6. Therefore, count 7, the aggravated assault with the pickup truck, would merge into count 3, because count 3 is the felony murder based upon count 7. So count 7 would merge into count 3. Count 8, false imprisonment, potential 1 to 10 year sentence, and count 9, a potential 1 to 5 year sentence. Therefore, the minimum Mr. Bryan is looking at is a life with the possibility of parole sentence, plus an additional 15 years, which once again can be run concurrent, it could be run consecutive, it could be probated and or suspended. In this particular case, the state is going to make a recommendation for Mr. Bryan of life with the possibility of parole on count 3, with 15 years to serve consecutively on probation. And that is going to be our recommendation for Mr. Bryan.
Wow.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will go ahead and present its victim impact evidence for the court's consideration. And then once that's through, we will make our argument. Thank you. We're going to present Mr. Marcus Arbery.
Oh, wow. Man, I don't know.
Make a point before we get into the victim impact statements, and not to imply that this would go any other way. But I do want to make sure that those that are addressing the court address the court, as opposed to anybody else in the gallery. So let's go ahead and proceed.
No direct conversations to the McMichaels or to Mr. Bryan at all.
Good morning.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
All right. Here we go.
It's a hard time with me and my family. You know, something that I just doesn't sit right with me at this time. The man who killed my son has sat in this courtroom every single day next to his father. I'll never get that chance to sit next to my son ever again. Not at a dinner table, not at a holiday. And not at a wedding. He'll never get to have I pray that no one in this courtroom ever has to do what we had did, that buried their child. There's no word for that, because no word knows that much pain. Not only did they lynch my son in broad daylight, but they killed him while he was doing what he loved than anything, running.
R.I.P. Sidney Poitier. Damn. What?
That's when he felt most alive, most free. And they took all that from him. When I close my eyes, I see his execution in my mind over and over. I'll see that for the rest of my life. When I became a father, my life became bigger than me. It became about my family, about protecting him, protecting my boy. I know in my head that there's nothing I could have done that day to have saved my son, to have protected him from that evil and hate. But my heart is broken and always will be broken because on my worst day or our lives wasn't there. If I could, I have trade places with Ahmaud in a heartbeat, but I can't. So I'm standing here today to do what he can't, and that is to fight for him, fight for his memories, his legacy, and to tell you who he was, because that's the one thing you didn't hear in this courtroom. And more than anything else, you should know who my boy was. We love our son, and we will never have him with us to celebrate anything. Thanksgiving, Christmas, or his birthday. His kids should spend the rest of their lives thinking about what they did and what they took from us. And they should do it from behind bars. Because me and my family, we got to live with his death the rest of our life. We'll never see Ahmaud again. So I feel they should stay behind them bars the rest of their life because they didn't give him a chance. Thank the court. Thank y'all for what y'all did with our family stuck by. Thank the jury. I give all glory to God. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Arbery.
Ms. Jasmine Arbery.
Good morning. My name is Jasmine Arbery. Ahmaud is my brother, and I would like to tell you a little about him. Ahmaud had dark skin that glistened in the sunlight like gold. He had thick, curly hair, and he would often like to twist it. Ahmaud had a broad nose, and the color of his eyes was filled with melanin. He was tall with an athletic build. He enjoyed running and had an appreciation for being outdoors. These are the qualities that made these men assume that Ahmaud was a dangerous criminal and chase him with guns drawn. To me, those qualities reflected a young man full of life and energy who looked like me and the people I love. Ahmaud was funny. He told jokes to lighten the mood because he was a positive thinker. Ahmaud had a big personality and never missed the opportunity to let it shine. Ahmaud had a future that was taken from him in an instance of violence. He was robbed of his life pleasures, big and small. He would never be able to fulfill his professional dreams, nor will he be able to start a family or even be a part of my daughter's life. The loss of Ahmaud has devastated me and my family. So I'm asking that the man that killed him be given the maximum sentence available to the court. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
He's about to bury him. He about to bury him, y'all. Look at that look on his face, man. He about to bury them. These guys are never going to see freedom ever again.
Good morning.
Trust. Trust. Wait for it, babies. Wait for it.
I want to first speak directly to my son.
Woo! He is ready to go, Kimberly. Ready.
This verdict doesn't bring you back, but it does help bring closure to this very difficult chapter of my life. I made a promise to you. Today, I laid you to rest. I told you I love you, and someday, somehow, I will get you justice. Son, I love you as much today as I did today that you were born. Raising you was the honor of my life, and I'm very proud of you. Your Honor, these men have chose to lie and attack my son and his surviving family. They each have no remorse and do not deserve any leniency. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or mistaken fact. They chose to target my son because they didn't want him in their community. They chose to treat him differently than other people who frequently visited their community. And when they couldn't sufficiently scare him or intimidate him, they killed him. My youngest son, he was born on Mother's Day of 1994. He had a smile so bright it lit up a room. He was a greedy baby that seemed like he was always searching for something to stick into his mouth. He was always a loving baby who seemed to never tire of hugs, cuddling, and kisses. He loved, he never hesitated to tell me, his sister Jasmine, and his brother Marcus that he loved us. And Your Honor, we loved him back. He was messy. He sometimes refused to wear socks or take good care of his good clothing. I wish he would have cut and cleaned his toenails before he went out for that jog that day. I guess he would have if he knew he would be murdered. My family is gonna miss Ahmaud. We're going to miss his jokes, his impersonations, his warm smile. These men deserve the maximum sentence for their crimes. Ahmaud never said a word to them. He never threatened them. He just wanted to be left alone. They were fully committed to their crimes. Let them be fully committed for the consequences. Your Honor, I'm standing here for you as the mother of Ahmaud Arbery. asking you to please give all 3 defendants who are responsible for the death of my son the maximum punishment in this court, which I do believe is life behind bars without the possible chance for parole. Thank you.
Like what she said,
Thank you, ma'am.
talking about his clothing and being bare, like not wearing socks and stuff. Like she clearly was like, no, hold up.
Any additional evidence
You know
and
what I mean?
aggravation from the state?
No more additional evidence from the state, Your Honor.
Argument?
Your Honor, the state is seeking life without the possibility of parole for the McMichaels based primarily on the evidence presented in this case. The state is not going to go through all of that evidence, just a few very important items.
Because I say we'd be
First
here for
off,
7 hours.
There was a demonstrated pattern of vigilantism by Greg and Travis McMichael. First off, we have our July 13th, 2019 911 call after both of them went with guns to confront a homeless man who was living under the bridge, who they suspected must have been committing all of these crimes. Of course, all of these crimes included a lot of reports to 911 about suspicious persons. And as we heard from the witness stand and defense witnesses, a couple of unlocked cars with things stolen out of them by people outside the neighborhood. And then we have February 11th, 2020. Yes, Ahmaud went inside of the open, unsecured construction site that particular day. But Travis McMichael went home, got his father, they both got their guns, and then they went back down to that construction site. We know that because we heard the 911 call. And he says, I'm sitting outside the construction site. He talks about seeing somebody inside with a flashlight. The horrible part is we know from Brooke Perez, who testified for the defendants, that her husband had gotten a call from Larry English, and he'd gone over there with his handgun. We also know that the 2 men went inside with their handguns. It's a miracle they didn't shoot each other. And no one had called the police. Travis is outside in the pickup truck, finally calling the police. He stays on for about 4 minutes, and then Officer Ash appears. That didn't teach anybody here a lesson at all. Brooke Perez was trying to tell them, no, my husband's over there with a gun. Be careful, go in there. But Greg McMichael took off, according to Travis's statement, down the street and went right into that house. So we've got July 2019, February 11th, 2020. Not calling 911 first, not staying home, but wanting to seek out, in a vigilante manner, a confrontation with people that they suspect might be doing something that they themselves, up until January 1st of 2020, had not been the victim of. In all cases, they took firearms with them, did not stay home, did not allow the police to do their job, but instead, as on February 11th, Greg McMichael went in and started searching the house himself. We all know that how that could have turned out terribly for him, for anyone in there, and for Diego Perez. All the decisions they made that led up to the death of Ahmaud Arbery. There were so many opportunities to stop, to think. And here's the real problem. Greg McMichael was former law enforcement, as they pointed out repeatedly. And Travis McMichael had served in the Marines. I'm not the Marines, the Coast Guard, as they pointed out repeatedly. So here we have some men who should have known better.
Bang. Bang, bang, bang.
Should have known better. Vigilantism always goes wrong. You wait for the professionals to show up. The professionals who are in marked cars, the professionals who are in uniforms, the professionals who are going to do it right because they have something to lose. the professionals with body cams, the professionals such as Officer Rash, who just would have stopped Mr. Arbery and said, hey, I'm going to put you on the phone with Larry English so Larry English can tell you to please not to come back. And they should have known that. They had alternatives. They had choices. But instead, Travis McMichael, who stated he was putting his son Everett down for a nap, who stated that his father had all these medical and health problems, didn't say, no, Dad, I'm putting Everett down. No, Dad, you need to stay here. He grabbed his shotgun, which he stated was propped up in a corner in that house, to go with his father. And Greg McMichael was willing to get into that pickup truck and sit in a child's seat to go chase after Mr. Arbery. Greg McMichael attempted to control the narrative from the get-go at the scene. His statements were all about how they were justified, how it was self-defense, how Mr. Arbery attacked his son. When the unknown man came up to Greg McMichael at the scene, because of course the police hadn't put Mr. McMichael anywhere, told him not to talk to anybody. He was running around the scene talking to everybody. And when talking to this unknown man who walked up to give him water, he basically said, no, this guy's an asshole. He is 20 feet from Mr. Arbery's body, referring to Mr. Arbery as an asshole. There's been no remorse shown, and certainly no empathy from either man.
Zero.
Because empathy would have said, hey, how must this look to this person that we're chasing? Are we terrifying this person? Are we scaring them? No empathy for the trapped and terrified Ahmaud Arbery. There was thoughtlessness as to the consequences, thoughtlessness as to the alternatives.
Bury him. Bury him. Bury him under the prison.
There was vigilantism.
Thugs.
And because of that, we are asking for Travis McMichael and Greg McMichael to be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Travis McMichael on count 1, malice murder. Greg McMichael on felony murder count 2, with the prior sentences or the underlying charges to run concurrent consecutive per the state's prior statement.
With the possibility?
The state is going to guess that the defense will probably say that these men served their country, they served the community. Travis in the Coast Guard, Greg McMichael at the district attorney's office. But we all know it is not the 99 things you do right, not the 99 good deeds that you do. But when you take another person's life, it can't be undone. It can't be taken back. There is no do-over. It's final. And that means caution must prevail. Thoughtfulness, empathy, and insight must prevail, not vigilantism. With regard to Mr. Bryan, his actions speak for themselves. He contributed to the death of Ahmaud Arbery in a significant way. The court is familiar with his actions. The court is familiar with his statements, with his level of cooperation with Agent Seacrest afterwards. And given his actions and statements in this case, the state is asking for a life with the possibility of parole sentence. And that would be on count 3 with 15 years consecutive on probation for Mr. Bryan.
She said it twice now. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
she's saying life with the possibility of parole. With. So that wasn't, she didn't misspoke. She didn't misspeak. That was not a, interesting. They said with the possibility of parole. Interesting. I need to look that up really quick.
Your Honor, for 150 years, judges in cases in which defendants were convicted of murder were authorized to impose a life sentence. That was the only sentence available. In 2009, the legislature expanded the judge's discretion and now allows a judge to impose both a life sentence with the possibility of parole and a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and gives absolutely, as Mr. Goff pointed out, no guidance to the court as to what factors to take into account when differentiating between people convicted of murder. But I know this court, Your Honor, has been on the bench long enough and has tried a number of cases, including murder cases, in which you've had to make those decisions. And you've had to differentiate between defendants and be consistent in your rulings, in your sentencing, probably the hardest thing any court has to do, which is to sentence a person to time in prison. In this case, in which the state is seeking the harshest possible sentence allowable under the law, we're asking the court to reserve the harshest possible sentence under the law for those who deserve it, for the worst of the worst. When the facts of the crime show a darkness of soul, a person so depraved and heinous as to shock the conscience by their actions, or where the offender is such a danger as evidenced by his past conduct or by his actions post-offense, such that rehabilitation is remote or impossible, those are the offenders who deserve the harshest possible punishment under the law. Those are the offenders who people would argue deserve to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Neither of those scenarios encompasses Travis McMichael or the conduct for which he was convicted. And like Ms. Donikoski, I want to spend just a couple minutes reviewing the conduct for which he was convicted, because I agree with something she said, maybe for the first time in this trial. When Travis McMichael woke up on that Sunday morning with his son Everett in his house,
Here we go.
his goal was not to go out and kill somebody. His goal was to play with his kid. When he sat down for lunch with Everett, possibly with Greg and his mom, Lee, and sister Lindsay, his goal was not to commit a crime that day or kill somebody that day. His goal was to have a family afternoon. And when he was putting his son down,
get out of here
at 1 o'clock or so in the afternoon,
shut up.
He was doing what every single person wants to and should be doing, which is taking care of their toddler son.
That doesn't change anything, bruh.
When he got in the truck at his father's behest to find out who that person was sprinting down the road, his goal still was not to commit a crime. His goal still was not to hurt that person, to merely investigate, to find out what was that guy doing back at the house where Matt Albenzi was motioning. And then 4 minutes later, Mr. Arbery's dead. Mr. McMichael's covered in blood. And we have what we have here and what the jury heard.
A murder.
And he was convicted. The jury found that his actions constituted malice murder, felony murder, and the underlying felonies. But this is not a case in which he just targeted someone recklessly, targeted someone without knowledge, misidentified someone. He knew Ahmaud Arbery. He had encountered him previously. And he had known about the fears that the neighbors felt at Mr. Arbery's continued presence. I'm not going to retry the case. The jury found that those facts did not add up to probable cause and did not justify Mr. McMichael's actions. But he didn't just go out and shoot Mr. Arbery. He only fired the shots, the fatal shots, when Mr. Arbery came at him and grabbed the gun, as Dr. Donahue demonstrated.
Whatever.
These were not, and as reckless as those acts may have been, as Ms. Donikoski pointed out, as thoughtless as they may have been, they are not evidence of a soul so blackened as to deserve to spend the rest of his life in prison.
No.
This was not a planned murder. This was not a murder involving torture. It was a fight over a gun that resulted in Mr. Arbery's death. And for that, the jury found Mr. McMichael guilty.
Exactly. So sit down. Sit down? Yeah, sit down.
The state contends that 99 good acts don't overcome one bad act. And of course, Legally, that's true. Mr. McMichael is now a convicted felon. But 99 good acts do weigh in this court's consideration, do factor into what choice this court is going to make when sentencing Mr. McMichael.
Where's he
to
going with
either
this?
spend the rest of his life behind bars or give him the possibility of redemption.
And what would that be, baby? Redemption.
And those
Come
acts,
on, man. Sit
those
down.
99 good acts, the court heard about those in the bond hearing.
What, community service?
The court heard that during his time as a lifeguard at a camp for kids who are who have family members with terminal illnesses.
See how he's pulling that out of his
That
ass?
Travis McMichael actually saved the life of a boy who was drowning in the pool. The court heard that Mr. McMichael, while serving in the Coast Guard, literally saved the lives of family members who were on a boat that was taking on water.
So?
The court heard that Mr. McMichael saved the crew of a Coast Guard vessel while serving in the Coast Guard.
Yo!
The court heard of the letters of commendation given to Mr. McMichael by his superiors.
Who cares?
For various acts that the superiors said show superior dedication,
Oh, this is
selfless
hilarious.
devotion to duty and consideration of others,
Oh.
and adherence to our core values, honor, respect,
Sorry.
and devotion to duty.
This is hilarious.
They don't excuse anything that happened on February 23rd, but when the court is weighing in the scales of justice what
He was a
people
good
deserve
man.
to spend their lives
Oh. Get out.
and then die in prison
Yeah, let him.
versus those people who deserve to be punished but then hold out hope for redemption, those are the acts the court should consider.
Get out of here. They don't need to consider nothing.
Mr. McMichael was a devoted father to Everett.
Who
He had
cares?
Everett 50% of the time, shared custody with Everett's mom.
Who cares?
And in fact, early on was shown to be the more reliable parent, although I know that changed over time with his mom stepping up.
Mm-hmm.
He was a friend to many people who are now too scared to come to court and speak on his behalf.
Oh my God.
As the court knows from the testimony it heard in trial and at the bond hearing, he was always a hard worker,
So?
always had a job,
So?
never laid around letting other people support him, always paid taxes, always supported his community in a variety of ways.
This
The
dude.
discovery that we received is replete with FBI and GBI interviews of people in his community, people who told law enforcement officials of the times Mr. McMichael helped them when they were having problems, when their boat became unmoored, or when their docks were pulled off from storms. And Mr. McMichael was out there finding those things and bringing them back to the owners, or helping other people in the community, just as he thought he was
This is
doing
rich.
on February
my God.
23rd. Actions that in hindsight turned out to be thoughtless, as Ms. Dunikowski said, or reckless, but were not evidence of an abandoned and malignant heart. Nothing in Travis McMichael's life suggests that he's a danger to society now,
Are you
or
kidding
will
me?
be a danger to society 30 years from now.
You
After he
murdered
has time
somebody.
to think, to work, to grow. When he's in his 60s, older than me right now, do we still want a person like Travis McMichael behind bars?
Yes. Yes.
There's nothing in his post-offense conduct that shows that he's either mentally unstable or a sociopath. He cooperated fully with police. He told the police everything he knew to tell them because he thought he was doing the right thing, even if that thing turned out not to be right.
Because he thought he was
He
untouchable.
and Greg McMichael thought they were helping their community. They thought they were helping the police catch someone who inexplicably had been in a house, and we still don't know what he was doing in the house, on 4 or 5 different occasions. He never fled. He never tried to obstruct the investigation. When he talked to his neighbors about what happened, he always expressed remorse and disbelief. If life without parole is reserved for the worst of offenders, those who are so scary, so unpredictable, and so likely to pose a threat in the future, then it is not appropriate for someone like Travis McMichael. The only purpose of a life without parole sentence, Your Honor, is vengeance. It's retribution. And the urge to seek vengeance is strong and understandable in the family.
Oh my God.
Lord knows if I was in their position, I would be seeking the same thing. But vengeance is not the foundation of our sentencing in our criminal justice system. Redemption is. Redemption is the belief that a person can learn, can grow, and still contribute after punishment. It is pointless to continue to punish a person who has undergone changes in character that distance him from the person who committed the crime decades previously.
What am I listening to here, y'all? What are we listening to?
Travis McMichael,
Is this real?
35 years old now, should have the opportunity to show that he's grown,
No.
to show that he's changed, and the parole board,
No.
years from now, is in the best position to determine whether he should remain behind bars or can serve a useful purpose to society. Who knows where we will be as a society in 30 years? Why make a decision today that impacts so many people long after we're gone, long after you and I are retired, hopefully, but that binds the hands of those who will have to live with this decision 3 decades hence? Why make a decision today that snuffs out all possibility of growth, of redemption in Travis McMichael? Compassion for Travis McMichael and the humility to admit that we don't know what's going to happen in the future doesn't diminish the compassion that we feel for Ahmaud Arbery's family. Their loss is real and understandable. And their desire for the maximum punishment.
Where's the
is
orchestral
real and
music?
understandable.
Wrap it up, B.
But
Wrap
again,
it
that's
up.
why we have judges imposing sentence and not the families of the
Bruh.
victim.
This is trash.
Because there are a lot of factors this court takes into consideration: deterrence, rehabilitation, retribution. Those are all valid factors. But the only thing an LWOP sentence serves is retribution. Wouldn't it be healing for Mr. Arbery's
Injustice, you
family,
dumbass.
for Travis McMichael to atone, to be able to express the remorse that's in his heart without the specter of a federal trial hanging over his head? We've heard several times today that he's shown no remorse, but this court knows that no lawyer would allow Mr. McMichael to say anything about his feelings towards the family while there were 2 pending murder trials against him. When the witnesses were interviewed by law enforcement about Mr. McMichael's conversations with them, to a person, they said that he showed remorse, that he never wanted to kill somebody. He was merely trying to detain Mr. Arbery for the police. It is disingenuous and unfair to expect Mr. McMichael to express remorse with yet another trial beginning in 3 weeks, where everything he says can be used by the federal government against him. Wouldn't it be powerful, though, for Travis McMichael to look deep into himself and explore with the public, with his son Everett, why he did what he did, and in fact become a force for good while in prison and out, instead of one more old man behind bars costing taxpayers $50,000 a year or more in 30 years? Wouldn't it be healing to society for someone like Travis McMichael to be free to help heal the wounds that are certainly present in this country due to decades and decades and decades of discrimination, of racism? Wounds that we're just now beginning to try to heal. Judge, you can send a message. 4 minutes of conduct does not erase a life well lived. And that after punishment, there is opportunity for redemption. An opportunity that Travis can either take advantage of and prove himself worthy or not. And that the parole board can then determine whether he should be released from prison. We are not asking you to do anything, Your Honor, but to agree that we don't know today what the future holds. We're asking you to sentence him to life with the possibility of parole if it's earned.
Are you done?
Judge, as far as sentencing, I would disagree with the state. I believe count 7 and count 9 do merge. I believe the language of chasing Mr. Arbery through the Satilla Shores neighborhood that is stated in count 1 and also stated in counts 7 and 9. Were used up, were subsumed, and would be therefore would effectuate a merger of those crimes. In either event, this court has wide discretion in how it fashions this sentence. And we'd ask the court to exercise this discretion in favor of growth, in favor of redemption, in favor of hope, for not just the McMichael family, for not just Everett McMichael, but for the Arbery family and what Travis McMichael can prove himself worthy of in the future. Thank you, Your Honor.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. There's more? Oh my God. They all got to say something. What else? What are they going to say?
Probably at a good breaking point. Let's go ahead and take a break. Let everybody get some lunch. We will plan on reconvening at, let's do 1 o'clock. It's just before 12 o'clock now. And we will continue proceedings at that time. Thank you, everybody.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that's some BS. Oh, I'm so angry right now. I'm upset. Damn. Ah, that's so frustrating because I was hoping that they were going to come up with something. Man, we're going to hear something. The sentencing. I thought it was, man, can you believe that? Can you believe that, Ish? That was some BS, y'all. But that's the real stuff. That is the thing that we're seeing all the time now. I mean, like, you saw it with me. Now, I don't know the female prosecutor, but the female prosecutor came in guns blazing. She was not messing around. I also have mad respect for the family that came up to speak on behalf of this, of everything. On behalf of this whole of this sentencing, and saying, please throw them behind bars and throw away the keys. Toss them damn keys. But the fact that you had one of the defense attorneys come up and say, that he still deserves an opportunity for redemption, and 4 minutes shouldn't destroy a life that was well lived. What are you talking about? 4 minutes destroyed a life that was well lived. His name is Ahmaud Arbery. Let's not forget that. Those 3 men chased this young man down and killed him in 4 minutes. Period. Doesn't matter if one of the McMichaels had, was a Coast Guard or whatever, and another one was, served for the district attorney. Clearly, he used his privileges and his abilities and his connections to fly under the radar for a while, to be free for like 90 days, y'all. He had 3 months of freedom. He and his son and Mr. Brian, Roddy. They had freedom after they had literally, maliciously killed Ahmaud Arbery. Point blank range in the middle of the damn street. And this lawyer, I mean, he's singing for his supper. You know what I'm saying? You see it. You saw that, Ish. That man's singing for his supper. But he's literally sitting there going, oh, there needs to be a chance for redemption. What redemption? Redemption is him, the McMichaels, becoming somebody's bitch in prison. That's the redemption. That's the change that we need to see. We need to see them get completely thrown behind bars and become somebody's B, somebody's bottom B. Kool-Aid lipstick and everything. Real talk. I ain't got no time for this. Oh, let's give him a chance. Let's give him a chance for redemption. Please. Now, I was looking this up because from my understanding, what the I feel bad for not knowing the prosecutor. But she was saying, maybe she misspoke, but she was saying life with the possibility of parole. Now, she could have meant life without the possibility of parole. It seems like that's what it was, because Jordan even said it in the comments. Shout out to Jordan. He said that's what he said earlier in the show, or early in the show, earlier in at the start of the trial, right? At the start of the trial, they were saying life without the possibility of parole. So I'm hoping that that's what they're still aiming for, right? I think she may have misspoke, but man, what a moment to misspeak. You know what I mean? What a moment to trip up on words. I'll just say that, okay? But if they really were to give them life without the possibility of parole, all right, it says a parole proceeding is a hearing to determine if the offender is suitable for release from parole supervision or from getting out of prison. What is a life sentence with the possibility of parole? Now, an example of a life sentence with the possibility of parole is when an offender is sentenced to serve a term of 15 years to life. So, of course, I am maybe summarizing this not the greatest way, but if after 15 years, I guess they can go up and see what's up and see if they can get out, right? If they can see freedom, right? But here it is. Clearly, with this situation, they need to have life without the possibility of parole. I think the McMichaels, well, shoot, I think Roddy Bryan, okay, most definitely needs to see the inside of a prison for as long as his natural life. That's what I think as well. All three of them went out there, chased this young man down, gunned him and all that, and they are all part of it. They should see the full extent of their sentence. That's what I think. And then hearing the family and what they were saying, I'm going to try to pull some of this up. Hold up. Let me get this up so we can just kind of do a little overview real quick before we jump off. Now, the family. Well, I'm just going to pull it up real quick. The family came up, said what they needed to say, put in their 2 cents about everything. Obviously, it's heart-wrenching to hear from the father, the mother, and his sister as well. What they said was short and sweet and to the point, heartbreaking, but totally, absolutely, I'm 110% behind every single last thing that they said. I think the sister said some really beautiful things. His sister said some really, really beautiful things about him. And of course, the mother said some things as well that were just like, she said, yeah, he didn't wear socks in his sneakers. Because, the other lady, the other lawyer, which we will most likely hear from her soon here too, was talking about how his dirty toenails in his shoes and all that, talking about how dirty, like he was a dirty little, black guy. The racism on the defense side is just so tangible. I mean, it's so thick. You could cut it with a knife, right? But she went out of her way to say, no, my son, yeah, maybe he didn't take good care of his good clothes, but this was my son. And I got to be real. The one part that really got me was when she was talking about how he was as a baby, like how he was just greedy. You know, he always just wanted to have things, and you know what I mean? Be touching things, always curious, just wanting to know what things are, right? And you know how babies always put things in their mouths, or just grab something, they'll just put it in their mouth, that kind of thing. You know, it's almost like a moment of discovery, you know, trying to figure out what the heck that is type thing. You know, when she talked about that, that was like, oh man, that detail, you know, that's a real mother right there, right? Really knows her child. And Ricard 0713, yeah, the female defense lawyer discriminated Ahmaud Arbery. Absolutely. And then, of course, you know, when she came up, the mother came up and said, you know what, I'm going to say what I need to say. And yeah, he didn't wear socks in his sneakers. So still a good man, still a good boy, still my son. And he's still not here because of these three men who decided to chase him down like he was livestock, like it was hunting season. And the way that this other dude, let me pull this up. And like I said, Linda, I think Mr. T said it just a second ago. I need to find it again. Y'all talking wonderfully. Dunikowski, Linda Dunikowski. I think that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, I think she said a lot of things. I mean, obviously, she's very, very passionate about this. She's clearly emotionally attached to this trial. She feels every single word that she's saying. She stands behind every single last word. I think she's been doing an incredible job. And it's been dope to see her just up here schooling these racist defense lawyers just to be completely straight funky. But then we go over to this dude, and I don't know his name, nor do I even care. This guy is something else. Dude is something else. He literally tries to make justification for what they did, saying that what they were doing is okay. And that, hey, if you could just understand what he's going through, what my client is going through, then you might reconsider the sentencing that you're going to place on my client's head. He said a lot of stuff in here. I'm like, wow, this is actually what they say in trial? Like, you know, when you know for a fact that you are drowning, right? You know for a fact that you are fighting uphill. You are in a losing battle, right? Losing battle. You know for a fact that this dude is about to see the rest of his life possibly behind bars. So you pull out everything and the kitchen sink and try to throw it in there and just see what sticks. Oh, this is retribution. But this isn't redemption. And this man, this young man who was with his child, he wasn't planning on doing anything that day when he was hanging out with his son. All he wanted to do was play and have fun with his son and take care of his son and be a good father. He did not know he was going to go and shoot a young black kid in the middle of the street in point blank range with a shotgun, riding on the back of a truck bed like this kid was livestock, like it was hunting season on all black runners. He didn't know he was going to do all that. He just wants to be a good daddy. Get out of here. It's funny how they take out all the other details, forget all those other details, and say, oh, no. Wait a second. That day, he just wanted to be a good dad. Yet if you watch the video that they tried to hide, and by some miracle, some wonderful human being was able to take that video and put it out there in the ether so we could all see the truth. This is one of the main reasons why this trial is even happening. The McMichaels were driving that truck. One of them was in the back, in the bed of the truck, riding the back of it, holding the gun, holding the shotgun, having a blast, chasing Ahmaud Arbery down the street while trying to bump him off the road with their trucks, terrifying the living daylights out of this young man. But no, that same guy that was driving and riding in those trucks, they weren't planning on doing anything like that. They just wanted to have fun and take care of their son. That's all. That's what they were there for. They had no plans on shooting a young black man in the middle of the street in point blank range with a shotgun. But before that, riding a F-150, riding into the back of the bed of the truck with the shotgun in the air, going wee wee, running after this young man, running him off the road, cornering him, and then shooting him. They didn't have plans to do that at all. So that should be totally justified. So no, judge, please do us the small favor. Don't throw the book at him. Please think about it, because he's a father first. And the things that he has done while being a Coast Guard, the things that he has done, the people and the homes and the people that he's saved while working in the district attorney's office. These two men don't deserve this. What? They still killed a young man, unjustifiably so. But I never heard something like this before. I've never heard a lawyer go up there and go, you know what I'm saying? He loves his son. I'm sorry. Those 4 minutes should not automatically make him a bad human being. 99% of this other stuff, of his other life, his whole life, for 99% of it, has been great. 4 minutes. It's 4 minutes of a bad thing. Does that mean he's a bad guy? Yeah, I would say he's a bad guy. Yeah. It's muerte. You killed somebody. You committed murder. And instead, like they said before, like the prosecutor said, like Linda said a second ago, they could have waited for 5-0 to come up and say something. But they didn't. They took the law into their own hands. They wanted to get all Frank Castle up in this piece, y'all. They wanted to be the Punisher. And they took matters into their own hands. So here it is, guys. I mean, this is some horse-ish, okay? Absolute horse-ish. I'm going to try to come back on in a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of a break so I can get some coffee and get myself together. But I'm going to come back on because I definitely want to hear the rest of this this monstrosity from the defense. And I want to hear what the other defense lawyer wants to say. You know, the same one that said the dirty nails and his dirty feet and all that stuff, right? I love to hear what was going to come out of her mouth. Now, the other defense lawyer got to speak too. So we got some stuff to hear, right? So there's a little bit of a break here. They're supposed to be coming back around 1 Eastern time, so noon here very, very shortly. I will come back on and be on as long as I can be. If it goes a little bit longer, unfortunately, I'm going to have to hop off because I do have some prior engagements here on my end. But still, I will be back on in about 45 minutes or so. So be on the lookout. We are going to be watching the rest of this ish. Trust and believe. Or at least I'm going to try to watch as much as I can. Because if they're as long-winded as this piece of work here, then I might not be able to watch the full sentencing. But we're going to get as much as we can in, okay? So, yes, Stephen, I'm about to go get me some coffee, like right the F now. But please go take your potty breaks, do what you need to do. I'll be back in about 45 minutes. So be on the lookout for a new stream, okay? I'll see you guys very, 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 very soon. I didn't know that this is very impromptu right now. But if you can, do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Send those likes all the way up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? It'd be great to have you a part of the Pascal Show family. Anyway, I will be back. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys in about 45 minutes. All right. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.